Correct, ma'am. I think this is very important, which directly gets me to Abhivardhan. You have, I think, the best window to the capacity building in this country. As president of the Indian Society for Artificial Intelligence and Law, the aspirations of the overall participants in the sector, and then how we are positioning ourselves in this, geopolitics play around AI, all of that. So you have a much wider perspective, but just
Um, from a private sector perspective, I think the geopolitics of AI has to be seen with the lens of how the AI community globally is. So, for example, we usually think that with the rise of social media companies and fintech companies, we used to think that digital tech uh, entities can be corporatized in a way which are too centralized. Decisions are being made in Seattle and New York, and everything is done. We have to wait for a US Senate hearing, then let us see some bilateral negotiations. This is not just about India, it could be for any other country. But with AI, I think what is interesting is that there are startups who are doing more AI innovation than traditional big tech companies. The only exception in the big tech probably is Google and at max Salesforce in enterprise and research side of AI, R&D. And how does that affect the geopolitics? It affects the geopolitics because the problem is that if you look at the whole AI investment curve, around 70% or 80% of obsession and focus has been around language models and vision models, the whole Transformers framework. But does it really percolate into value? Well, if we look at from a perspective of data labeling and data extraction, which uh, uh, some speakers really pointed out, yes, that helps investors. Does it have any geoeconomic impact? Because I'm not referring to the semiconductor landscape at all. Yes, for cloud providers like Cloudflare, because they have been very hard on companies like Perplexity, which create an interesting scenario for this AI community. Because AI community, totally EPC, unlike the usual expectations, it's a very decentralized community. So the best example is have somebody in Singapore who can collaborate with somebody in Gujarat Pradesh, and these three people can collaborate with somebody in Japan, like Osaka, or somebody in New York, and they can apply for a startup and YC, and they can still collaborate on AI. Yes, on AI talent, a lot of hoarding is happening, but I think that the saturation point for the economics, technological reliability of LLMs has already reached. What does it mean for us? Well, I totally agree with Arunaji that India has the most dynamic AI talent. That's because I think when it comes to IISCs and the IITs, our talent adapts to literally anything. We already see that when it comes to our publications. And I am 100% sure that the hype of LLM will not affect our talent. In fact, we will not regurgitate, but do better to pivot to better opportunities and better technological workflows. We can, of course, learn from other countries. We can learn a little bit from China on this, like how they provide this avenue to AI researchers that you should not just focus on certain components, but like 60-50 components. And like how the US is, you know, very interested and passionate about the larger economic understanding. I think India can be a great blend in its own right, because as a democracy, for our own nature, a unique adaptive democracy, we actually have that talent which can do incredible things. Now, but that also means that we will see a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India which will actually impart a lot of AI innovations. They can be prototype based. They don't need to be full scale products. I think at a diplomatic level, saturation is set to happen because while AI risks are a problem, despite the technological limitations of LLMs, and there are cybersecurity risks for sure. There are IP issues. Anthropic just settled at a very high cost in the US, but a Beijing IP court hearing says something otherwise, or economic rights and not necessarily copyright. So um, I don't think that that form of regulatory arbitrage in AI. I'm not talking about data. I'm not talking about issues of privacy. That is GDPR. That is DPDP. That's a very separate territory. But when it comes to algorithmic infrastructure and the economics of it, I don't think that regulatory arbitrage will be happening because it has actually reached to a saturation point. And I think I'll just be very quick by saying is that since the Bletchley Declaration under the Prime Ministership of Rishi Sunak and the lead of Joe Biden, I think around 400 AI policy documents came across the world. And the problem is a lot of them are either not implementable or either they don't make sense for the market. So, well,